They smashed his windshield while he sat inside, bleeding. Marcus Cole, a 52-year-old veteran, remained motionless in his beat-up pickup truck as 3 security guards destroyed it with batons. His weathered face showed no emotion as glass shards cut his arms. Onlookers filmed the violence but refused to intervene. When police arrived minutes later, they handcuffed Marcus instead of the guards who had just committed assault in broad daylight. His only words were spoken calmly, "I understand." But behind his steel-grey eyes lay a secret that would destroy everyone who had wronged him that day. Marcus drove his rusted 1998 Chevrolet pickup to Pinnacle Corporate Plaza, an upscale business complex in downtown Denver. He wore faded jeans and a worn military surplus jacket that had seen better days. The moment he stepped out of his truck, Security Chief Derek Hansen spotted him through the surveillance monitors. Hansen, a 35-year-old man with a buzz cut and an inflated sense of authority, immediately radioed his team. "Got a vagrant situation in Sector 7, he announced, despite Marcus parking legally in the designated visitor spots. Marcus walked toward the main building with precise, military-disciplined movements, carrying a sealed manila envelope. His humble appearance triggered unconscious bias from everyone he passed. Office workers in expensive suits quickened their pace and avoided eye contact. A woman clutched her purse tighter when he approached the elevator. The building's atmosphere grew tense as word spread about the homeless man in their pristine corporate environment. At the reception desk, Sarah Mitchell, a 28-year-old receptionist with perfectly styled blonde hair, refused to announce his arrival to the executive floor. "Sir, this building is for business appointments only," she said with barely concealed disgust. Marcus calmly showed her his appointment confirmation email on his phone. She scrutinized it with suspicion, then picked up her phone to call security anyway. "We have protocols to follow," she explained condescendingly, as if Marcus couldn't understand basic business procedures. Hansen arrived within minutes, flanked by 2 guards. Tommy Reeves, a 26-year-old eager to impress his boss, and Jack Morrison, a 31-year-old with a history of aggressive behavior. They demanded Marcus leave immediately, despite his legal right to be there. He produced official documentation showing a scheduled meeting with CEO Richard Blackstone about property acquisition discussions. Hansen dismissed the papers as obvious forgeries without even examining them properly. Marcus remained calm throughout the confrontation, speaking softly, "I have every right to be here." His quiet confidence unnerved them more than any argument could have. In the parking lot, Hansen's questioning became increasingly aggressive. "What's your real business here? You casing the place for your druggy friends?" Marcus responded with military courtesy that only irritated Hansen further. "Sir, I'm here for a legitimate business meeting, as scheduled." His respectful tone contrasted sharply with the hostility he faced, creating an uncomfortable dynamic that several employees observed from their office windows. Tommy searched Marcus without legal justification, finding only the manila envelope and Marcus's worn leather wallet. Inside the wallet, a military identification card, a disability veteran card, and a simple business card reading M. Cole, private consultant, with only a phone number. No fancy address, no corporate logo, nothing that impressed the security team. Jack mocked his appearance openly. Private consultant, consulting on what, where to find the best dumpsters in town. The guards laughed at their own cruelty, while Marcus absorbed every insult with stoic silence. Hansen grew increasingly frustrated by Marcus's composure. The veteran's calm demeanor suggested hidden strength that Hansen couldn't identify or control. "You think you're smart, playing games with us?" Hansen grabbed the manila envelope from Marcus's hands. Marcus didn't resist but stated clearly, "That's private property, sir." Hansen tore it open anyway, finding only blank corporate letterhead and a single business card identical to the one in Marcus's wallet. "What kind of scam are you running here?" Hansen demanded, waving the empty envelope like evidence of wrongdoing. Marcus requested to call his attorney, a right he knew he possessed. "You don't have an attorney," Tommy sneered with obvious contempt. "Guys like you can't afford real lawyers. You probably got that card from some ambulance chaser." The confrontation drew more curious employees to their windows, creating an audience that would soon become crucial witnesses. Marcus methodically asked for badge numbers, full names, and the company's official complaint procedure. His systematic approach irritated Hansen, who preferred dealing with people who could be easily intimidated. "You want to make this official? Fine by me." Hansen radioed for police backup, claiming Marcus was trespassing and refusing to leave company property. Marcus didn't argue or attempt to flee. He simply waited with military patience, occasionally checking his watch as if expecting something important to happen soon. 2 police officers arrived within 10 minutes. Officer Martinez, 29 years old with 5 years on the force, and Officer Webb, 34, and nearing retirement. Hansen immediately framed the situation before they could conduct an independent assessment. "This vagrant's been harassing our employees all morning, refusing to leave, acting erratic and threatening." Marcus attempted to explain his side, but Webb cut him off dismissively. "Save it for the judge, pal." Without conducting any real investigation, both officers sided with the well-dressed security team against the shabby veteran. Marcus's respectful military bearing and polite responses didn't matter when weighed against his appearance. "Hands behind your back," Martinez ordered curtly. Marcus complied without resistance, maintaining his dignity even as the handcuffs clicked into place. His calm acceptance of injustice unsettled some observers, but most assumed his guilt based on his poverty. Hansen, emboldened by official police support, decided to escalate the humiliation. "Search his truck, too. It's probably stolen anyway." Marcus voluntarily provided his keys and registration documents. Everything checked out as completely legitimate, but they searched his vehicle anyway, dumping his meager belongings onto the asphalt. A small crowd gathered as employees exited the building with their phones, recording what they assumed would be a routine arrest of a homeless troublemaker. Marcus endured their stares with unshakable dignity. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Get a job!" Another voice added, "This is exactly why we need better security around here." The verbal abuse continued as Marcus stood motionless in handcuffs, watching his life's possessions scattered across the parking lot. His breathing remained steady, but tears formed in his eyes, not from personal pain, but from the profound injustice of the entire situation. Then Hansen made a decision that would haunt him forever. Finding nothing incriminating in the truck search, he grew vindictive and personal. "This piece of junk truck is an environmental hazard, probably leaking oil all over our clean parking lot." He ordered his guards to secure the area from contamination. Tommy and Jack interpreted this as permission for violence they had been eager to commit. They began striking Marcus's truck with their batons while he remained handcuffed just 20 feet away. The windshield exploded into 1,000 pieces, raining safety glass across the seats where Marcus had slept during his worst nights with post-traumatic stress. They dented the hood with methodical precision, broke both mirrors, and slashed all 4 tires with deliberate cruelty. Marcus watched his truck, his only reliable transportation, his shelter during panic attacks, his last connection to independence, being systematically destroyed by men who enjoyed their power over someone they believed was powerless. A female employee named Jennifer Park, 41 years old and a mother of 2, finally objected to the excessive violence. "This is way too much. He hasn't done anything violent or threatening." Hansen silenced her with bureaucratic authority. "Ma'am, please step back for your own safety. This man is clearly dangerous." The destruction continued as oil pooled beneath the ruined engine, and the guards played to their audience like performers in a cruel show. Officer Webb asked Marcus if he wanted to press charges for destruction of property, a question that revealed the system's fundamental hypocrisy. Hansen quickly interrupted. "He can file his complaint at the station, right after we book him for criminal trespassing." Marcus finally spoke again, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. "I want badge numbers from all of you." His calm request for accountability amid such violence sent an uncomfortable chill through the assembled crowd. In the back of the police car, Marcus sat in perfect stillness that unnerved both officers. His reflection in the bulletproof glass showed a man who had been transformed, not by defeat, but by terrible purpose. 20 years of careful patience had led to this precise moment. Every insult endured, every assumption made, every act of cruelty committed had been meticulously catalogued in his memory. The time for gathering evidence had ended. The time for justice had finally arrived. At the police station, Marcus exercised his constitutional right to one phone call. The desk sergeant expected him to call a public defender, a family member, or maybe a veterans assistance hotline. Instead, Marcus dialed a number he had memorized years ago but never used until this moment. This is Cole. Authorization code Sierra 7 Alpha 9. A brief pause followed. Yes, sir. It's time to proceed. The conversation lasted only 90 seconds, but was filled with cryptic references that made the eavesdropping sergeant nervous. Property assessment phase complete, Marcus said calmly. Acquisition phase initiated. Legal team standing by for full deployment. His tone had subtly shifted from the humble veteran they had arrested to something that carried unmistakable authority. The sergeant tried to follow the conversation, but caught only fragments that suggested military precision and substantial resources. When Marcus hung up, he sat quietly, with the expression of a man who had just triggered a carefully planned operation. While waiting for processing, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. 20 years earlier, he had been Colonel Marcus Cole, a decorated Army intelligence officer specializing in deep-cover corporate infiltration. His final military assignment involved exposing defense contractor fraud, but that mission had never officially ended. It had simply evolved into something far more personal and comprehensive. After his military discharge, Marcus had used his substantial settlement money and benefits not for personal comfort, but for a larger purpose that consumed his every waking moment. He became a ghost in the system, systematically acquiring properties, businesses, and legal leverage while maintaining his carefully constructed facade of poverty and powerlessness. Every act of discrimination he endured was actually reconnaissance for a war most people couldn't imagine. 3 months earlier, Marcus had purchased Pinnacle Corporate Plaza through a complex network of shell companies and legal intermediaries. The sellers never met him personally, only his team of attorneys and financial representatives. His plan had been elegantly simple. Experience the company's true culture firsthand as a seemingly powerless individual, then clean house from the position of ultimate authority. But today's events had exceeded even his worst expectations about human cruelty. The violence, the public humiliation, the complete absence of basic human decency, everything had been witnessed by dozens of people and recorded by multiple cameras. His second phone call, allowed as a veteran seeking legal counsel, connected him to Amanda Sinclair, a 45-year-old senior partner at Washington, D.C.'s most feared law firm. She had been retained for years, waiting patiently for this exact day to arrive. Marcus? Finally, we're fully mobilized. Federal investigation launches within the hour. Corporate papers are already prepared. By tomorrow morning, you'll own everything they thought they were protecting. Marcus posted bail using a credit card that surprised everyone involved in the process, a black American Express with no spending limit. The processing officer double-checked the card's validity 3 times, unable to believe that a homeless-looking veteran possessed such financial credentials. The card was authentic, linked to accounts that the police computer system couldn't fully access due to federal privacy protections. While Marcus had been detained, news of the incident began spreading beyond the immediate area. Jennifer Park had uploaded her video footage with hashtags about veteran abuse and security brutality. Within hours, the video went viral across multiple platforms, generating thousands of outraged comments from viewers who identified themselves as military veterans, civil rights advocates, and ordinary citizens, disgusted by the systematic cruelty they had witnessed. Hansen, monitoring online activity for damage control purposes, called CEO Richard Blackstone in a panic. "Sir, we have a serious situation developing. That homeless guy from this morning, he's becoming a major public relations nightmare." Blackstone, busy with important merger negotiations worth millions of dollars, dismissed the concern impatiently. "Handle it quickly, make it disappear. I don't have time for minor security issues." But Marcus's legal team was already moving with military precision. Amanda Sinclair's investigators arrived at Pinnacle Plaza with federal court orders demanding all security footage, employee records, incident reports, and personnel files. Hansen attempted to obstruct their investigation but quickly faced contempt of court charges that could result in immediate imprisonment. The federal authority behind these orders made it clear that this was no ordinary civil rights complaint. Local news stations picked up the story as it gained momentum online. Channel 7's Veteran Affairs reporter, David Chen, recognized something unusual about Marcus's composure in the viral video footage. He began investigating Marcus's background, but encountered classified walls everywhere he looked. Military records were sealed, financial information was protected, even basic biographical details seemed to be restricted by federal security protocols. Marcus returned to Pinnacle Plaza the next morning in a rented sedan, accompanied by 3 individuals in expensive suits who radiated obvious authority. Hansen didn't recognize them but felt immediately threatened by their professional confidence and federal credentials. Amanda Sinclair stepped forward with documents that would change everything. Mr. Cole is here for his previously scheduled appointment with Mr. Blackstone. Here's a federal court order requiring your full cooperation and immediate access. The power dynamic shifted visibly and dramatically. Employees throughout the building whispered among themselves, recognizing that yesterday's vagrant now commanded serious legal firepower. Marcus walked through the same lobby where he had been forcibly removed 24 hours earlier. His bearing remained unchanged, but his context had been completely transformed. The humble veteran was revealing himself as something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined possible. Hansen, desperate to maintain some semblance of control over the deteriorating situation, made the catastrophic decision to double down on his original lies. He filed additional criminal charges against Marcus: assault on security personnel, making terroristic threats, and attempted burglary of corporate property. Each false report dug his legal grave deeper, but his wounded pride wouldn't allow him to admit any wrongdoing or show any weakness. Tommy and Jack, finally realizing the serious legal trouble they faced, approached Hansen privately in his office. "Maybe we should just apologize to the guy, say it was a big misunderstanding," Tommy suggested nervously. Hansen exploded with rage. "You want to apologize to that piece of human trash? We did our jobs exactly right. He's lucky we didn't do a lot worse to him." His angry words were recorded by the building's security systems, the same systems that Marcus's technical team was now legally accessing under federal court order. CEO Richard Blackstone finally agreed to meet with Marcus, expecting to resolve this minor incident with a small financial settlement and a non-disclosure agreement. He had prepared to offer $5,000 and a promise that the security guards would receive additional training. When Marcus entered the executive boardroom, flanked by federal investigators and high-powered attorneys, Blackstone's confidence evaporated completely. "Mr. Cole, I understand there was an unfortunate misunderstanding yesterday involving overzealous security personnel," Blackstone began diplomatically. Marcus remained silent, allowing Amanda Sinclair to speak on his behalf. "Mr. Blackstone, your misunderstanding constitutes multiple federal civil rights violations: criminal assault, conspiracy to deny constitutional rights, and systematic fraud." She slid a thick folder across the polished conference table. "These are the charges your company faces, criminal and civil. The monetary damages begin at $50 million. Blackstone attempted to minimize the situation. "Look, boys will be boys. Security was just doing their job, protecting our property and employees." Amanda's response was swift and devastating. "Your employees committed felony assault while police officers watched. Everything was recorded by multiple cameras and witnessed by dozens of people. This isn't a he said, she said situation." Marcus finally spoke, his voice carrying quiet authority that filled the room. "Mr. Blackstone, I didn't come here for your money. I came here to purchase your company. Yesterday's events simply changed the acquisition price significantly, in my favor." The room fell into stunned silence. Blackstone laughed nervously. "Purchase our company? You're homeless. You live in that destroyed truck?" Marcus's expression remained perfectly calm. "I suggest you check your corporate ownership records immediately. Then examine who has been systematically acquiring your debt, your subsidiaries, and your vendor contracts for the past 18 months. Amanda opened her briefcase with theatrical precision, revealing contracts, financial documents, and acquisition papers that represented months of careful legal preparation. Mr. Cole's investment consortium now controls 67% of Pinnacle's assets through various shell companies and holding corporations. As of this morning, we're prepared to exercise hostile takeover provisions that will give him complete operational control." Blackstone's entire legal team worked frantically through the night to verify these shocking claims. By morning, they confirmed their worst nightmare. Mysterious shell companies had indeed been systematically acquiring Pinnacle's infrastructure, debt obligations, and vendor relationships. The homeless veteran they had humiliated and assaulted actually controlled their company's financial future and could destroy them with a single business decision. But Marcus wasn't finished revealing the scope of his operation. He calmly explained the second phase of his strategic plan: a comprehensive federal investigation into Pinnacle's government contracting practices. As the owner of a veteran-controlled business through his shell companies, Marcus possessed legal standing to challenge their military procurement fraud, something he had been investigating methodically for over 2 years. Your company has been systematically overcharging the Department of Defense by 300% on basic supplies and equipment, Marcus explained with professional detachment. Veteran hospitals have received defective medical equipment because you deliberately cut costs while padding profits. Soldiers in active combat zones have been issued substandard protective gear because your company prioritized shareholder returns over human lives. The evidence was overwhelming and meticulously documented. Marcus's team presented falsified inspection reports, records of bribed government officials, and deliberate substitution of inferior products sold at premium prices. He had been building this criminal case for years, but yesterday's assault provided the final piece of evidence he needed, demonstrating the company's systematic disregard for veterans and basic human dignity. Hansen, watching his career and reputation collapse in real time, made one final desperate attempt to salvage the situation. He tried to delete security footage, destroy incident reports, and intimidate potential witnesses into changing their testimony. Each illegal action compounded his legal jeopardy exponentially, while providing additional evidence for federal prosecutors to use against him. Tommy and Jack, proving smarter than their supervisor, hired criminal defense attorneys and agreed to cooperate fully with federal investigators. Their detailed testimony revealed Hansen's established pattern of targeting veterans, minorities, and anyone he personally deemed undesirable. Marcus wasn't his first victim, just his most dangerous mistake. The evidence showed years of systematic discrimination that had been encouraged and rewarded by corporate management. The media attention intensified dramatically as the story gained national prominence. Veteran organizations across the country demanded immediate accountability and justice. Congressional representatives announced public hearings. Stock prices plummeted as major clients canceled lucrative contracts. The company's reputation was destroyed, and financial collapse seemed inevitable. Marcus granted his first television interview to Channel 7's David Chen. When asked why he had endured such humiliation in complete silence, Marcus provided an answer that resonated with millions of viewers. Sometimes the most effective way to expose evil is to allow it to reveal itself completely and unambiguously. They showed the entire world exactly who they really are. When the interviewer asked about personal revenge, Marcus shook his head firmly. This isn't about revenge against individuals, it's about institutional justice. And it's not just for me. It's for every veteran who has been dismissed, every person judged solely by their appearance, and every individual who lacks the resources to fight back against systematic oppression. The federal courtroom was packed beyond capacity for Hansen's arraignment hearing. Local media had expected a simple assault case, but instead they witnessed the complete unmasking of one of the most elaborate undercover operations in corporate justice history. The gallery included veterans, civil rights advocates, corporate executives, and curious citizens who had followed the story's rapid development. Federal prosecutor Sarah Rodriguez presented Marcus's true background to a stunned courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, Marcus Cole is not simply a homeless veteran as he appeared to these defendants. He is a retired Army colonel, former Pentagon intelligence officer, recipient of 2 Purple Hearts, the Distinguished Service Cross, and the Silver Star for extraordinary heroism under fire. The revelation shocked everyone except Marcus, who sat quietly as his decorated military career was systematically revealed to the public for the first time. But the prosecutor wasn't finished with her bombshell revelations. More significantly, Colonel Cole is the primary beneficiary and operational director of the Cole Foundation, established with a $200 million inheritance from his late uncle, technology mogul Harrison Cole. For the past 5 years, this foundation has specialized in exposing corporate discrimination through sophisticated undercover investigations conducted across the United States. The courtroom erupted in gasps and whispered conversations. Marcus's humble appearance, his beat-up truck, his patient endurance of systematic abuse, everything had been carefully constructed to reveal institutional bias at its absolute worst. He wasn't a lucky victim who got justice. He was a strategic operator who had been playing chess while his opponents played checkers, never realizing they were outmatched from the beginning. Amanda Sinclair addressed the court about the Foundation's comprehensive mission. Colonel Cole could have lived comfortably in retirement on his substantial inheritance. Instead, he chose to experience discrimination firsthand, systematically documenting how veterans, minorities, and economically disadvantaged individuals are treated by major American corporations. The Pinnacle case was revealed as his masterpiece. 18 months of systematic preparation designed to expose corporate culture at its most revealing moment. For 18 months, Colonel Cole systematically acquired this company's debts, vendor relationships, and financial dependencies while simultaneously experiencing their workplace culture as a seemingly powerless individual. Amanda continued, every interaction was professionally recorded, every slight was legally documented, and every act of bias was preserved as evidence. But yesterday's events crossed every legal and moral line imaginable. The scope of Marcus's operation astounded everyone present. Teams of investigators, attorneys, financial experts, media specialists, and federal law enforcement had been coordinating for years, waiting for the perfect moment to act with maximum impact. His single phone call from jail had triggered a coordinated response that would have impressed military strategists at the highest levels. Hanson's defense attorney attempted to argue entrapment, but Judge Patricia Stern dismissed the claim immediately. Your client's actions were entirely voluntary and completely unprovoked. The victim's actual financial status and background do not excuse criminal assault, destruction of property, or violation of constitutional rights. The evidence against all three defendants was overwhelming and indisputable. But the individual criminal charges paled in comparison to the corporate implications. Pinnacle's systematic discrimination against veterans violated multiple federal laws. Their government contract fraud carried penalties in the hundreds of millions. Their public humiliation of a decorated war hero created liability exposure that could bankrupt the entire corporation. Marcus finally addressed the court directly, his voice carrying the authority earned through decades of military service and strategic planning. Your Honor, I possess the resources and patience necessary to fight back against this injustice. Most victims of discrimination do not have such advantages. They endure humiliation silently because they have no realistic alternatives. He looked directly at Hanson with steady, unforgiving eyes. These defendants didn't just attack me personally. They revealed a culture of institutional cruelty that destroys innocent lives every single day. That systematic abuse ends immediately. The Pinnacle Plaza incident triggered a cascade of consequences that reshaped the entire corporate security industry nationwide. Within 48 hours, Marcus's expanded legal team filed comprehensive federal civil rights lawsuits against not just the individual perpetrators, but the entire corporate structure that had enabled and encouraged their discriminatory behavior. The Department of Justice launched a parallel criminal investigation that would eventually involve multiple federal agencies. FBI agents conducted coordinated raids on Pinnacle's offices in 7 states, seizing files, computers, financial records, and internal communications that revealed years of systematic discrimination and fraudulent business practices. The investigation's scope expanded far beyond the assault to encompass decades of discriminatory policies, fraudulent government contracts, and deliberate targeting of protected classes, including veterans, disabled individuals, and minorities. Amanda Sinclair orchestrated a comprehensive media campaign that transformed Marcus from victim to national symbol of strategic resistance against institutional oppression. Major television networks competed aggressively for exclusive interviews. 60 Minutes produced a special investigation. Documentary filmmakers requested unprecedented access to the Cole Foundation's extensive archives of corporate discrimination evidence. But Marcus maintained absolute strategic control over his public narrative. He granted carefully selected interviews, each one designed to advance his larger mission of systematic institutional change. When reporters asked about personal revenge, he consistently redirected attention to broader issues. This case isn't about me personally. It's about ensuring that no veteran, no disadvantaged person ever faces this kind of systematic abuse again. The financial implications for Pinnacle Corporation became absolutely catastrophic. Government contracts worth $300 million were immediately suspended pending investigation. Major corporate clients terminated their relationships to avoid association with discrimination scandals. The company's stock value plummeted 85% in just 3 trading days, wiping out billions in shareholder value. CEO Richard Blackstone attempted desperate crisis management, hiring expensive public relations firms and promising comprehensive corporate reforms. But Marcus's legal team released new evidence daily, recorded conversations revealing deeply racist attitudes among management, internal emails mocking disabled veterans, and systematic policies explicitly designed to exclude undesirable visitors from their properties. The evidence painted a horrifying picture of institutional corruption that extended far beyond a single incident. Internal corporate communications showed deliberate targeting of veterans, minorities, and economically disadvantaged individuals. Training materials actively encouraged racial and economic profiling. Performance reviews specifically rewarded aggressive discrimination against protected classes. Congressional hearings began within 1 week of the incident. Senator Patricia Reynolds, Democratic chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee, subpoenaed all parties involved. Marcus testified with military precision, presenting evidence methodically while maintaining perfect composure under aggressive questioning from corporate-friendly senators who attempted to discredit his investigation. "Senators, this is not an isolated incident involving rogue employees," Marcus explained during his televised testimony. The Cole Foundation has systematically documented similar discriminatory behavior at over 200 major corporations nationwide. Veterans returning from military service faced systematic discrimination in employment, housing, healthcare, and basic public accommodation. His testimony included video evidence from other undercover operations. Veterans denied job interviews despite superior qualifications. Disabled soldiers refused service in restaurants, and military families evicted from housing based on prejudiced assumptions about problem tenants. The legal proceedings accelerated rapidly. Hanson, Tommy, and Jack faced federal civil rights charges, carrying maximum sentences of 10 years in federal prison. Their defense attorneys attempted to negotiate plea agreements, but Marcus's legal team refused any deals that didn't include substantial prison time and lifetime bans from security work. The civil lawsuit expanded into a massive class action representing thousands of veterans who had experienced similar discrimination across multiple states. Corporate security policies underwent emergency revisions nationwide as companies scrambled to avoid similar legal exposure. Professional trade associations issued new guidelines, training programs added mandatory anti-discrimination modules, insurance companies dramatically raised premiums for clients with documented civil rights violations. The entire industry was transformed by fear of becoming the next pinnacle corporation. 6 months after the incident, the federal courthouse hosted the final sentencing hearing for Hanson, Tommy, and Jack. The proceedings revealed how completely their lives had unraveled since that fateful day when they decided to destroy Marcus's truck. Derek Hanson entered the courtroom as a broken man, whose world had collapsed around him with devastating completeness. Hanson's wife had filed for divorce after learning about his recorded racist statements that were played repeatedly on national television. His 2 teenage children refused all contact, deeply ashamed of their father's national notoriety and the way their classmates treated them. His career in the security industry was permanently finished. No company would employ someone whose prejudice had cost hundreds of millions in damages and destroyed an entire corporation. His defense attorney presented a desperate mitigation case focused on childhood trauma, financial stress, and pressure from corporate superiors. But prosecutor Sarah Rodriguez systematically destroyed these excuses with overwhelming evidence of Hanson's established pattern of discriminatory behavior, spanning many years and involving dozens of victims who testified about their experiences. "Your Honor," Rodriguez stated firmly, "the defendant didn't snap under temporary pressure. He systematically abused his authority to terrorize vulnerable individuals over many years. Colonel Cole was simply his most documented victim, but certainly not his first or his last." Victim impact statements filled an entire day of court proceedings. Veterans testified about Hanson's previous misconduct that had never been officially reported. Jennifer Park, the employee who had tried to intervene, described the toxic workplace culture that Hanson had deliberately created and maintained. Marcus's victim impact statement proved most powerful and memorable. He spoke without notes. his voice carrying the authority of military command combined with the weight of moral certainty. "Mr. Hansen, you encountered a man you believed was completely powerless, and you chose deliberate cruelty. You destroyed my truck, not because it posed any threat to you, but because you enjoyed exercising that power over someone you considered inferior and disposable." The courtroom remained completely silent as Marcus continued his statement. "But your greatest crime wasn't committed against me personally. It was against every veteran who watched that video footage and recognized their own experiences with discrimination. You confirmed their worst fears about how American society truly views their military service and personal sacrifice." Hansen's few remaining supporters dwindled daily as more evidence emerged. Corporate executives who had once praised his effective results now claimed they had never endorsed his discriminatory methods. Former employees came forward with private conversations where Hansen had expressed pride in keeping the riffraff away from decent people. Tommy Reeves received slightly more lenient treatment, having cooperated fully with federal investigators and demonstrated genuine remorse for his actions. His attorney successfully argued that he had been following orders from a superior and had been influenced by Hansen's authority and toxic leadership style. Character witnesses described a young man who had been led astray by a corrupt supervisor and hostile work environment. But Jack Morrison's arrogance persisted even in federal court. He showed absolutely no remorse for his actions, claiming he had simply been doing his job as trained. His social media posts, discovered during the investigation, revealed years of racist and anti-veteran commentary that demonstrated deep-seated prejudice. His defiance and lack of remorse ensured he would receive the maximum possible sentence. Judge Margaret Stern delivered sentences that shocked the packed courtroom. Hansen received 8 years in federal prison plus a lifetime ban from any security employment. Morrison received 6 years with no possibility of early parole. Reeves, acknowledging his cooperation and demonstrated remorse, received 3 years plus 500 hours of mandatory community service at veteran rehabilitation facilities. But the criminal sentences were insignificant compared to the civil judgments that followed. The class action lawsuit resulted in $127 million in total damages. Hansen faced complete personal bankruptcy as his house, cars, and savings were seized to pay veteran plaintiffs. He would emerge from federal prison completely destitute and permanently unemployable in his chosen field. 2 years after the incident, Marcus surveyed a landscape that had been fundamentally transformed by his patient crusade for justice. The Cole Foundation had evolved into the nation's premier civil rights enforcement organization, with offices in 12 major cities and a professional staff of over 200 investigators, attorneys, and advocates dedicated to exposing institutional discrimination. The corporate security industry bore little resemblance to its discriminatory past. Federal legislation, officially known as the Cole Act, now required all licensed security personnel to complete 40 hours of civil rights training annually. Companies faced mandatory government audits of their policies regarding interactions with protected classes. Violations resulted in immediate license suspension and substantial financial penalties. Major corporations completely restructured their security approaches to avoid legal liability. Walmart, Amazon, and Target implemented comprehensive dignity protocols that required respectful treatment of all visitors regardless of appearance, economic status, or background. Hospital systems trained their staff to recognize veteran trauma responses rather than mistaking them for threatening behavior or mental instability. The transformation extended far beyond corporate security policies. Police departments nationwide adopted Marcus's strategic patience training methods, teaching officers to look beyond surface appearances and avoid hasty judgments. Military veterans received priority consideration for security positions, completely transforming an industry that had once systematically excluded them from employment opportunities. Marcus's undercover investigative methodology spread internationally as governments recognized its effectiveness. The European Union funded similar programs targeting corporate discrimination. Japan launched comprehensive initiatives addressing workplace bias. Australia created veteran advocacy positions directly modeled on Marcus's systematic approach to institutional change. But the most significant transformation occurred in corporate culture itself. The Hansen incident became required case study material in business schools nationwide, taught as a cautionary example of how prejudice and discrimination destroy shareholder value. Executive training programs now emphasize the hidden costs of institutional bias: lawsuits, reputation damage, talent loss, customer alienation, and regulatory scrutiny. Marcus continued his undercover work, despite his growing public recognition, using increasingly sophisticated disguises and operational techniques. His foundation operated comprehensive discrimination testing programs, sending trained investigators into corporations to document bias patterns before they could escalate to violence or legal violation. The measurable results proved encouraging and sustained. Documented discrimination incidents dropped 67% in monitored industries. Veteran employment rates in corporate security increased by 400%. Customer service complaints related to racial and economic profiling decreased dramatically across multiple sectors. Congressional oversight remained active and engaged. Annual hearings reviewed progress and identified emerging challenges in civil rights enforcement. Marcus testified regularly before various committees, his measured testimony carrying weight, earned through demonstrated results rather than theoretical advocacy or academic credentials. 5 years after that devastating day in Pinnacle Plaza's parking lot, Marcus Cole stood in an unexpected location: the dedication ceremony for the Hansen Memorial Veterans Center, a comprehensive rehabilitation facility built on the former site of Pinnacle Corporation's destroyed headquarters. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present at the emotional ceremony. Derek Hansen, serving his final year in federal prison, had contributed his personal story to the center's creation through a victim impact documentary program. His detailed testimony about the psychological roots of prejudice and discrimination now helped train counselors working with both veterans and former perpetrators of institutional bias. His fall from authority to prisoner had become a powerful teaching tool. Marcus had changed subtly but significantly over the years. His hair showed more gray, his face carried deeper lines earned through years of strategic struggle, but his military bearing remained proud and purposeful. The beat-up truck had been replaced by a modest sedan, still humble and practical, but no longer a deliberate prop in an elaborate undercover performance. The Cole Foundation had evolved far beyond Marcus's personal mission into a self-sustaining institution with national impact. Young investigators, many of them veterans and discrimination survivors themselves, carried forward his proven methodology under the expert guidance of Amanda Sinclair, who now served as the Foundation's executive director and chief legal counsel. Jennifer Park, the Pinnacle employee who had courageously tried to intervene during the original incident, now served as the Veterans Center's director. Her moral courage during that crucial moment had earned Marcus's lasting respect and a career opportunity that transformed her life completely. Marcus taught me that bystander intervention isn't just about the immediate moment, she explained to visitors. It's about the sustained commitment to systematic change that must follow. The center provided comprehensive treatment for veterans struggling with trauma, addiction, and civilian reintegration challenges, but uniquely, it also counseled individuals like Hansen, people whose deep-seated prejudices had led them to harm others. This dual mission reflected Marcus's evolved understanding of discrimination as a social poison that ultimately damages both victims and perpetrators. Tommy Reeves, released after serving his full sentence, now worked at the center as a maintenance supervisor. His personal journey from Marcus's attacker to grateful beneficiary of his forgiveness illustrated the complex possibilities of genuine redemption when combined with accountability. "I was young and incredibly stupid," Tommy admitted to anyone who would listen. "But Marcus showed me that people can change if they're given the opportunity and held fully accountable." Jack Morrison remained completely unrepentant, serving his maximum sentence without possibility of parole. Some people, Marcus had learned through bitter experience, deliberately choose hatred over personal growth. His foundation's work necessarily focused on those who could be reached and changed, not those who stubbornly refused any transformation. Marcus's personal life had found unexpected balance and happiness. He had married Dr. Sarah Chen, a 47-year-old trauma psychologist who had helped design the center's innovative treatment programs. Their partnership combined his investigative instincts with her therapeutic expertise, creating revolutionary programs that addressed discrimination's deepest psychological roots. The couple lived modestly in a renovated apartment above the Veterans Center, Marcus having donated the majority of his inheritance to expand the foundation's national work. His personal contentment came not from accumulated wealth or satisfying revenge, but from the systematic changes his strategic sacrifice had achieved for countless others. During the dedication ceremony, Marcus delivered a brief speech that captured his remarkable journey's essential meaning. 5 years ago, 3 men destroyed my truck because they saw someone they assumed was completely powerless. They were wrong about my powerlessness. But they were absolutely right about something else. I was broken. Not financially or professionally, but spiritually. I had lost faith in humanity's fundamental capacity for justice. He paused thoughtfully, surveying the diverse audience of veterans, advocates, former adversaries, and community members who had gathered to witness this transformation. This center exists as living proof that individual pain can become collective purpose, that personal courage can create institutional change, and that the arc of justice bends toward accountability when good people refuse to accept injustice as inevitable or unchangeable. The camera follows Marcus as he steps outside the Veterans Center into the late afternoon sunlight, long shadows stretching across the memorial garden planted precisely where his truck had once been destroyed. He pauses at a bronze plaque listing the names of veterans who had died by suicide after facing civilian discrimination, a sobering reminder that his story had reached a happier conclusion than many others. Every week, our foundation receives hundreds of reports from people facing systematic discrimination, Marcus says, addressing viewers directly with quiet authority. Veterans denied housing based on stereotypes. Disabled individuals refused basic services. Minorities profiled in businesses they have every right to enter. The work isn't finished. It's expanding every day. Statistics scroll across the screen. Since the Hansen incident, veteran discrimination complaints have increased 300%, not because abuse is rising, but because victims now believe that reporting brings real results. The Cole Foundation has successfully prosecuted over 1,400 cases, recovered $2.3 billion in damages, and forced comprehensive policy changes at 847 major corporations. But statistics don't tell the complete human story, Marcus continues thoughtfully. Behind every case number is someone who decided to fight back instead of accepting injustice as normal, someone who chose personal dignity over silent submission. Should there be stricter consequences for abuse of power? Tell us what you think in the comments below. The camera pulls back to reveal the bustling Veterans Center, former adversaries working alongside discrimination survivors, genuine transformation happening in real time before viewers' eyes. But this documentary isn't ending, it's transitioning to something larger. What you've watched today represents one story from one incident. But across America, similar battles are being fought every single day. People who appear powerless, who seem vulnerable, who get systematically underestimated, and who absolutely refuse to accept that judgment. The screen teases upcoming episodes with intriguing titles: The Homeless Harvard Professor, The Janitor Who Owned the Building, and The Minimum Wage Chief Executive Officer. Each title suggests another story of hidden identity, patient justice, and eventual triumph over institutional oppression. Marcus's final words carry both warning and promise for viewers. The next time you witness someone being mistreated, remember this story carefully. You might be watching someone methodically gather evidence. You might be witnessing the opening chapter of their ultimate victory, and you have a choice: be a passive bystander, be an active perpetrator, or be a courageous ally. The Veterans Center's motto appears prominently on screen, words that have become the Cole Foundation's guiding principle. Dignity is not negotiable. Justice is not optional. Change is not impossible. And a final statistic scrolls past. The Cole Foundation is currently investigating 342 active cases of institutional discrimination. If you've experienced similar treatment, visit their website. If you've witnessed injustice, report it immediately. If you want to support their expanding work, donate generously. The screen fades to black with one powerful final message. Remember Marcus Cole's story the next time you're tempted to judge someone by their appearance. You never know who's watching. You never know who's waiting. You never know who has the power to change everything. Never judge a person's power by their appearance. Dignity delayed is justice denied.